Hello everybody, episode 13 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes has just come out. We are greeted with what is likely the final episode of this season. Quite enjoyable, in my opinion, although it may be a bit sad to see Knuckleduster leave. But I'm sure he'll be back. From what we're getting, he's just maybe spending a little bit of time with his daughter and his wife. So we start off this episode with Popstep now singing along to the recording of her and the Featherhats. So we kind of get the feeling from this that she's not over the high that she felt of hanging out with the Featherhats and actually doing this concert. Then we see this giant praying mantis monster, and it looks quite large in my opinion. It's terrorizing the city, really slicing through things just immediately with this razor claws it has. And it seems to be chasing down Koichi now, and Koichi slides onto the scene saying, "I'm the vigilante who shows up when people are in danger." And now he's the one in danger, and he's like running as fast as he can, and the thing even slices a part of his ear off. Luckily, he is saved by Captain Celebrity. Good to see Captain show up just in time. Once again, always just in time. Never early, never late. But he ends up asking Koichi if he can go back to his place to talk about this whole situation they have set up where he has to come save him all the time. Captain Celebrity then sits down across the table from Koichi and says, "I'm tired of saving you. So, stop doing what you're doing. Just be a civilian, because that's where you belong. You obviously don't have the power to be taking on these villains, but you're still doing it. So we're gonna need you to stop doing it. Thank you." And then, middle of this conversation, Koichi gets a call from his manager, basically asking, "Hey, is Chris in your house?" Chris being Captain Celebrity, and he tries to sneak in there with Popstep, which, no, don't sneak in there with Popstep. She will sue you. He can't afford to be sued by more women, let alone a high schooler. And then Makoto shows up, the manager herself, saying, "Oh, you're here. Anyway, I got some work for you to do." And he's like, "I don't want to work anymore." He's being bullied by Makoto. Makoto is using him for everything he is worth. Then we get the voice of a reason from Popstep, which is actually kind of weird. She says, "Oh, well, maybe you should be Nose's place guy, you know? Stop trying to be a hero, because, you know, you're not doing much. You're just kind of showing up and dodging," which I think he's actually doing a great job at saving lives. He can take the blows that regular civilians wouldn't be able to dodge, and may be in pretty big trouble if he didn't show up. Like in the My Hero Academia series, we actually are introduced to people who show up during disasters, and that's like their main thing as a hero. So it's like firefighters. They don't show up whenever a criminal shows up. They show up whenever there's a fire, and they put the fire out. They don't show up when there's a criminal. Koichi is the firefighter for the criminals. He prevents the criminals from hurting other people. That's what he does. But, of course, not everyone sees it like that. We then have this scene with Midnight outside of her hero attire, just wearing a nice suit, which honestly, I didn't recognize this as Midnight for a couple of minutes. It took me a while to figure it out. There's also a Eraserhead in this meeting, but they are talking about this new epidemic of the trigger drug being used as an overdosing kind of thing in these villains' bodies. They're being tampered with so then they can withstand the trigger overdose, and they're kind of catching on that this might not be some regular organization, because this regular organization is using pawns that would be other organizations like kings or queens. This is a big organization, and maybe they're even trying to figure out if this is all for one. Of course, we know it is, but they might not. Then we have this scene with very simple facial animations. I love the simplicity of these. There's so much showing in this where you can see the emotion, but obviously they didn't put a lot of effort into it. And I don't really mind the lack of effort here. I think it's cute. Captain Celebrity seems unhappy with this recording they're doing for the repairment of the Naruhata bridge section of the highway that got broken down a little while ago. Which, very strange. I didn't know that people advertised cities or businesses having fixed road work. I've never heard of that. Maybe that's a thing over there in Japan, but not here. Then we get this absolutely adorable scene of one of the idols. She's talking to these little kids. Oh my gosh, look at these kids. They're so cute. Like, oh, they're adorable. But she's basically telling these kids that this is a very serious festival, so they want them at their best behavior, basically, and that there will be a hero that shows up. Little does she know, she's actually lying to these kids. There's no plan for a real hero to show up. Of course, to make sure that they aren't being lied to, Koichi goes up on stage, ends up singing the same song that these kids were just singing, and makes a total fool out of himself. So strange, so adorable. This man, he has no shame. Then there's this big crash that happens where that guy who had a weird face thing that we mentioned last episode shows up. And he basically causes this big collision, and out of this big collision comes that bat quirk individual who had once been fighting Ingenium, but Ingenium could not subdue this man. So what they ended up doing was Koichi caught him, and then now it seems the person who has to catch him is going to be Captain Celebrity. Of course, this backcourt individual still has something out for Koichi, so he immediately tries to find Koichi, running straight to them and picking Koichi up off the stage. Doing so, of course, allows Captain Celebrity to catch up, and Captain Celebrity totally whacks this guy. Whoa, love it. Look at his eyes. I can't do that face. Then we go back to Koichi's apartment. Knuckleduster has left his knuckles, brass knuckles, iron knuckles, and bandana on this table here. That makes me think of like when a police officer leaves his badge and his gun on the table. Kind of the feeling I got here. Not the feeling Koichi got. Koichi starts brushing him off with his toothbrush, being like, oh, obviously Knuckleduster wants me to clean off the knuckles, so that's what I'll do. We even get this little flashback of Knuckleduster and Koichi having this conversation where it seems like Knuckleduster is saying his final goodbye, saying, you guys have this from here. Koichi's just saying, yeah, of course we can handle this from here. Like, as in this one villain attack. But it seems like Knuckleduster means more something along the lines of, I may never come back. And Koichi does not get that. We then get this scene of Spikework Bolt. He is sitting over the bed of someone who's in the hospital. And we then learn it is the B-Quirk user, or rather the girl who was the B-Quirk user, but is now simply Knuckleduster's daughter. And she doesn't seem like super thrilled for this guy to be here. She doesn't know who he is. So you can assume she doesn't have all the memories of the B-Quirk user. She's kind of out of it still. Maybe those memories aren't hers to have, because B-Quirk user knew this guy. As she is now, she does not know him. But to save us from the awkwardness, Oguro himself shows up and basically tells his daughter about the wife, the missus, in very roundabout terms, probably not wanting her to stress out any more than she has to. And we get this very nice, very sweet scene of him holding his daughter's hand after having had so long being apart, even being enemies. Very sweet to see this reunion. I love it personally. Very sweet. However, I do miss Knuckleduster. Oguro is cool. He's a great father. Father of the year. He killed his own daughter, brought her back to life, just to be able to hold her hand again like this. Just for a chance to be able to do this. So yeah, father of the year. But I like Knuckleduster. So hurry up and get better so he can go out and be Knuckleduster again, please. Then we have this whole board of everything that the gang has been up to. Of course, we have Knuckleduster's bandana with his knuckles inside of it hanging from the center. But of course, this is Koichi and Popstep's board, so whole bunch of Koichi hanging out with his fans. Then Koichi and Pop down here hanging out, and all of Pop's fan letters right by me here. And I think that's just Popstep or just Koichi, not sure. But a pretty good ending to the season, if I do say so for myself. I enjoyed it. What do you guys think? I'll go ahead and leave the playlist at the end of this video. Until next time, you guys have a blessed day.
And while you're here, go ahead and check out this video to see what you might have missed.